What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Forge Core Gaming. I'm your host, Phoenix, and today we're hopping straight into a review of a very popular medium fighter. Now, I'm going to try and start ramping up my review production schedule since we're just a few months away from IAE, and a lot of players like to have up-to-date information on ships so they can make informed decisions before they buy. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our new videos. And leave me a like if you enjoy insightful Star Citizen content. One more quick note. We've recently partnered up with the impound.com, so if you enjoy getting discounts on ships in Star Citizen, be sure to check out the link in the description. Using that link gets you a small discount for the most trusted gray market ship seller in the Star Citizen ecosystem. Just a heads up though, using that link also does benefit this channel in a small way. No pressure of course though, as we at ForgeCore are huge proponents of the idea that most ships in Star Citizen can be earned for free just by playing the game. And without further ado, let's get into my review of the Sabre from Aegis Dynamics. In traditional fashion, we're going to start this review off by taking a look at the exterior of the ship. But being that it is a relatively small ship, there isn't a whole lot to look over, so this will be kind of fast. From tip to butt, starting off at the front, we can take note of two size 3 weapons affixed to Varipug gimbals on either side of the ship's cockpit. Now, this does come with a total of 4 size 3 weapon hardpoints, which puts the Sabre in a bit of a weird spot, feeling like it's a little undergunned for the medium fighter class. But it does make up for it in other ways, which we'll touch on a little bit later. While we're up here, we can also take note of the massive engines straddling the main hull section of the ship, which accurately portray the idea that this ship is made to move pretty quickly. Also scattered around the body are a total of 8 maneuvering thrusters as well as 2 retro thrusters, which feels like a lot for such a small hull. Moving on, we can take note of the sleek design of the wings. Now these do fold when you deploy your landing gear, which makes it way easier to park, so that's nice. And moving to the rear, we can get some visuals of the output of those 2 main thrusters. Now there really isn't a whole lot else to see here, as there aren't really any exterior ship features except for this little gun rack on the starboard side of the cockpit, which seems to be experiencing a bit of a visual bug. Not sure what's going on there. Drop a comment and let me know how long that's been going on. Moving on to the interior, again, nothing fancy as this is a dedicated fighter, but I have to say, I really do like the cockpits of some of these dedicated fighters, as CIG just does a really good job of packing a lot of stuff into a small place. Now, quick look around, we do have plenty of MFDs directly in our eye line, which is good. We also have access to an ejection lever just between our legs, and we also have a variety of switches for ship functions scattered across the dash and side panels. Nothing really to complain about when it comes to the view either. There's plenty of visual real estate, which of course is helpful when you're engaging in high-paced combat encounters. And that about wraps up the tour. Let's go ahead and hop into the stat review and comparison section of this video. Now, if you're new to the channel, I generally like to compare the ship I'm reviewing to others that are either direct competitors to it or have an appreciable level of overlap in role, function, or layout. Given that this is a dedicated medium fighter, I wanted to compare it against a couple other medium fighters that I have some experience with, just as a way to round out the discussion. The ships I chose for today's comparison are the F-7A Hornet Mark II from Anvil Aerospace and the recently released Meteor from Robert Space Industries. Now, normally when I do these comparisons, I normalize everything across the board to attritions or ardors when applicable, but today we're doing something a little different because this ship is, well, it's a little different. So instead of using attritions for everything, I've gone ahead and equipped every weapon hardpoint with NDB-30s when I could, and I swapped out every component to Stealth Grade A for all 3 ships. And the reason I did that is because the Sabre has this neat little trait that automatically reduces the EM, IR, and cross-section signatures by 40% across the board. So that's the lens we're going to be using when doing this comparison. Starting off with the DPS, the Meteor takes an arguable lead with 4,366 sustained damage per second, and I say arguable because 2,788 of that sustained DPS comes from the bespoke Leonidas cannons, and in a lot of circumstances, those guns are just useless due to their projectile velocity. If we agree to include them though, the F-7A comes in second place with 1,992 DPS, courtesy of 6 NDB-30s, and the Sabre comes in third place with 1,616. And when it comes to shields, it's a 3-way tie with all ships boasting 2,260 shield HP in a bubble configuration, meaning regardless of where it's getting hit, the entire ship's shields will drain uniformly. Moving on to flight characteristics, in the world of straight line speed, the Meteor, once again, takes the lead at 229 meters per second, but only barely, as the Sabre comes in second at 223 meters per second, and the F-7A comes in third at a flat 220 meters per second. That trend stays true with boosted SCM speed though, with the Meteor taking a hefty lead at 570 meters per second, the Sabre with 480, and the F-7A with 479 meters per second. Moving on to pitch on roll, this is where things get pretty interesting for the Sabre, as it steps well out in front of the pack with 62, 48, 160 degrees per second respectively, whereas the F-7A comes in at 50, 40, 143 degrees per second. And of course, the Meteor lags behind with 46, 38, 155 degrees per second. And when it comes to hull HP, the Sabre comes in right in the middle of the pack with 23,000 HP, which is not a lot, but it's pretty befitting because it's a fairly small ship coming in at 24.5 meters wide, 24.5 meters long, and 5 meters tall. Quantum fuel is pretty even across the board except for the Meteor, which only has 1.15 SEUs of fuel, but that's really not a huge difference between the other two, and the fact of the matter is, these ships simply are not meant for long distances, so really no complaints there on all fronts. Alright, now that we have a pretty good grasp on the performance metrics of the ship at this point, let's go ahead and take it into the field and see how it performs. I want to preface this section of the video with this. I'm an average pilot. I'm nothing special. I'm not good, not bad, I'm just right down the middle. With that in mind, I paid special attention to what sets this ship apart from its competitors. My primary focus was to see if I, as an average pilot, could actually feel a benefit to flying something like the Sabre, which, on paper, should be more effective of a combatant due to its superior maneuvering capabilities. And spoiler alert, I did, but not right away. You see, the Sabre, just like all other ships in the Star Citizen universe, has both weaknesses and strengths. And if you lean into its strengths, it will reward you, but if you lean into its weaknesses, it'll punish you. So the first time I took the Sabre out, I definitely made a pretty sizable error because I took it into an HRT, aimed my nose straight at the target, and gunned it. But by the time I got to the medium-sized ship with 6 to 8 guns aimed at me, my shields were pretty much gone, after which point I tried to run away, except this isn't really fast enough to run away when you're already in the thick of things, because it isn't the Meteor. The smarter move I should have made was to get in tight, because of the Sabre's pitch-on roll characteristics, it can absolutely do that. You can point your nose at a target, and even if you're pretty much right up next to it. Which, okay, that may not always be accurate, but it can be if your target is a medium or larger ship. With a few hours of practice spanning over a few days though, I started getting the hang of things, and I started to really discover what makes this ship appealing. Here's what I found. The Sabre is never going to have the highest damage output. It's not going to be the fastest in a straight line, but it is really good at keeping guns on target. Compared to what I normally fly, the rate at which I could readjust my aim was almost jarring. Often, I overcorrected if I boost strafed while turning towards a fleeing target, just because I wasn't used to how quickly I could do that. I never really got super skilled at using the Sabre, but there were several times when engaging against large swarms of enemies that I was able to take one target out, and within literal seconds was able to get guns on the next one. It felt extremely satisfying to use, it felt natural to fly around in, and yet foreign because of how much better it performed than some other ships that I've been using lately when it came to target acquisition and takedown. It's ships, honestly, like the Sabre, that make me wish I was more of a fighter pilot rather than a medium ship type of guy. Now, sadly, I wasn't able to really test the stealth capabilities of the ship because I didn't engage in any PvP, and it appears to be the case that NPC ships just kind of know where you are the moment you're in range. But for the sake of being thorough, I'm going to toss up the emission charts for the 3 ships I used in the comparison. You'll see on your screen 2 emission charts for each ship. The top one is with the power levels pegged out at max, and the bottom is with minimal power to all components. As you can see, the Sabre gets its emission levels down much, much further than both the F-7A and the Meteor, more so the Meteor, of course. And honestly, I wish I was more of a PvPer, as I think this is one of those ships that I'd really enjoy using in a stealth build-out. So what's the verdict? Honestly, this one feels pretty plain and simple to me. On one hand, this is a single purpose ship with limited use cases, which generally I tend to avoid. But that one thing that it does, violence, it does really well. With that said, the Sabre isn't to be used as a blunt object. You're not going to overpower much of anything. Much like its namesake, the Sabre is a tool of finesse, one of knowing where to cut and when to do so. Now when it comes to fun, I rank the Sabre a solid 8.5 out of 10. With respect to combat effectiveness, its specialization, I'm going to put it at an 8. But when it comes to overall usefulness, I have to put it at a 5. So my final score for the Sabre is going to be a 7.2 out of 10, which is good. It's just not stellar. But, this is just my subjective opinion. Yours may change. That's absolutely fine. Now, whether or not I think it's worth the price tag of $175, well, for that, I have to pin it up against its in-game price of only 4.5 million AUEC. Because realistically, you can earn that in just a few hours using certain gameplay loops like hauling, for instance. And I generally want to gauge whether or not a ship I'm reviewing will substantially progress you through the game. I think this is limited in that aspect. So, though I think it's a fun purchase for the in-game price of 4.5 million, I think it's a pretty easy pass in the pledge store. Of course, exceptions apply for those of you that are collectors or just really like fighters. I think we put this up against ships like the F7C Hornet Mark II, which is also $175, and a lot of people tend to pledge that. I think the Sabre comes out on top in a couple of ways, so it isn't necessarily a bad purchase, just not one that I personally would make. And that about sums up the review, guys. Drop me a comment with your thoughts on the Aegis Sabre. Is it a cash or credit kind of ship in your eyes? I'd love to hear from you. Also, make sure you subscribe so you never miss it when we put out a new video. Finally, drop me a like to let the YouTube algorithm know that you appreciated what we put out today. As always, thank you all very much for watching. Fly safe out there, and I'll see you in the verse. Phoenix out.